Hello, and a special welcome to all our families out there. Tonight, our topic is effective strategies for managing time and homework. And I'm sure that a lot of you are hanging out to hear from our experts. And a special welcome to all our families out there. Tonight, our topic is... Sorry, just a bit of a technical glitch there. I'll start again. Hello, and a special welcome to all our families out there. Tonight I'm joined by Miss Christina Rubo, who is the college's e-learning leader. And of course, we've got our registered clinical psychologist, Miss Anushka Hausman, who leads wellbeing in the college. And tonight we're going to be sharing with you some of the strategies you can use with your child to manage their time and homework. Now, earlier this term, we put out a survey and we asked you, what would you like us to talk about? And on the screen at the moment, you can see that managing time and effective and looking at effective strategies for managing time and homework was top of the pile. Okay. We also asked you, what time do you prefer us to talk to you? And as you can see, an overwhelming majority of you said Mondays and Wednesdays from 8 to 8:30 p.m. Okay, so here we are. We listened to you, and let's begin the show. Okay, over to you, ladies.
Okay, so we wanted to start with a bit around time management. So this slide is just a quick overview of the sorts of things that we're going to cover in today's presentation. But the key things about time management are that not only does it have to be across the different tasks and subjects, but it also is imperative that it's managed within a subject as well, because we really want to make sure that kids can actually work towards time pressures and can effectively manage the time that they have.
So I guess the first thing that we look at when we look at time management is having an effective study environment. So that's the physical environment that the student is completing their tasks in. On the right hand side of the screen there, you can see that we've got things like proper lighting, low noise, and having resources easily accessible for the student as key things that they should take into consideration to minimise distractions and maximise the time that they spend focusing on their task.
So Christina, one of the common questions we have from parents is how much work are they supposed to do at home? I know in primary we sort of suggest that there's about a 20-minute total per night, so 10 minutes on literacy, 10 minutes on numeracy, and that can involve things like sight words, reading every night. In kinder they do phonics, there's maths games, but we really try to encourage young kids to also get outside, play, follow interests and do things that they like, gardening or basketball or various things like that. What about in high school?
Absolutely. So with our stage 4 students, that's year 7 and 8 students, we're expecting around 10 to 15 minutes of homework per 1 hour lesson. So each weeknight you would expect the student to be completing around about an hour of homework for their subjects from that day or for the next day. In stage 5, which is year 9 and 10, we increase that a little bit to between 15 and 20 minutes of homework or pre-work per 1 hour lesson. So that adds up to about 1.5 hours each weeknight for the students.
And how would teachers sort of plan around that homework? What's their role within that?
So teachers generally allocate homework to stage 4 students where activities haven't quite been finished in class. And in stage 5, they are under the blended mastery approach. They're completing pre-work, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But teachers do avoid setting homework that's due the next day wherever possible for the students to take into account other commitments that they might have.
Mm-hmm. And if it's a group task, are they expected to work outside?
Yeah, no. So students aren't expected to complete group work tasks at home.
Our stage 4 students,
they are provided with sufficient time in class to work with their peers and collaborate and have the teacher there to support them as well.
And just with primary, the previous Facebook Live, there was some suggested home activities for primary, and there was a school bag notification that actually was sent out at the time. And there will be some new literacy and numeracy activities that will be sent out at the beginning of each term. So stay tuned for that, because there will be a home learning grid where it does allow kids some choice within those activities for home. So, Christina, another common question is, what's the difference between pre-work and homework?
Okay, so for our stage 5 students, so year 9 and 10, they're the only ones at Santa Sophia at the moment who are engaging in pre-work. So that's an activity that relates to content to be covered in the next lesson for a particular subject and prepares the foundation learning for that class. It also allows the teacher to gauge where the students are at in their learning before they come to class to prepare appropriate activities. Pre-work versus homework. Homework is tasks that have already been started. Pre-work is tasks that have not yet been started. So they're tasks that contribute to the completion of a final project in stage 4 or a benchmark task that the student is working towards completing.
And benchmarks is another question we get a little bit about. So what does that actually mean?
So a benchmark task is a required task within a project or unit. So it's a formative assessment task where the teacher can gauge where the student is at in their learning, and also for the student as well to get a picture of where they're at to be able to apply feedback moving forward in that project.
Okay. Now, another thing that students are often, and parents are often asking about is, how do we know what they should be doing? Because sometimes they come home and they say, I've got no homework, or I've done everything. Yep. How do we know that's actually the case?
So our students have started using Canvas this year, and there is lots of features in Canvas to help the students manage their time effectively. So we'll have a look at those now. The first one we're going to look at is the student dashboard. So this is what the student sees as soon as they log in, and it's entirely customizable for each student. It can be color coordinated, it can be rearranged, they can rename subjects, and also they can amend their to-do list and access their feedback that you can see there on the right-hand side of the screen. So this is the card view where the students can directly access each subject. If I move on to the next slide, you can see that this is the recent activity view. So it gives the students a view of what's coming up next. So for example, this is a view of what the student has coming up today and then tomorrow. So you can see that they've got a benchmark task there due. So it's a quick snapshot of what's immediately coming up for the students. For a more holistic picture, they can access the calendar. Now this can be done from anywhere within Canvas in the left-hand global navigation menu. So they just click on calendar and it pops up with this view here. And you can see that this student has all of their subjects displayed, and it's automatically color coordinated as well. Tasks that have been submitted are automatically crossed out. So if I zoom in a little bit here, you can see that the student has submitted some of these tasks, and ones that have not been crossed out are upcoming, or they might be events. So this student has a film studies exam noted on their calendar. They've also got a benchmark task there for PDHP that hasn't yet been handed in because it's not crossed out, but the Finding My Own text has been completed. The student submitted that, so Canvas has crossed it out for them. So it's a great way to take a snapshot of what tasks need to be completed next.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to deep dive into the specific task, you can click on that task and it gives you an overview of what is required. So you can see here we've clicked on the pre-work task. So for our stage 5 students, our teachers make it clear that they denote that the words pre-work are in the name of the task, so the students can allocate time accordingly. So from there they can see the task requirements, and they can also submit the task as well.
And sometimes, I know you were saying that sometimes the task is done during class, especially for stage 4. Sometimes students click on the task and they say, but it's not crossed out, but I did it in class. What might be a reason for that?
So the teacher might be in the process of marking that task. So we would expect that where feedback is posted, then it would be crossed out as completed, so the student knows that they've received feedback on that in-class task.
And it can also be that students don't press the submit button.
Of
they
course,
do the work
yes.
and then they haven't pressed submit. So it can be just as simple as going back and doing that.
Yeah. Okay, so that was a holistic view. If we look at a particular course, in our previous screen we saw a overview of everything that the student had on their to-do list. That can be quite extensive. If we drill down into a particular course, here we've got a course homepage for Stage 5 English, and on the right hand side we've got the student's to-do list for that particular subject. So Canvas has filtered out every other subject and allowed the students just to focus on what do they need to get done for English. Now you can see there that there are some X's on the side, so the student can manage that list and cross off things that are done. Now, that's generated based on the tasks that the teacher is putting in Canvas. If the student would like to add an item to their to-do list, they are welcome to do that as well, and that'll appear as part of their recent activity and also on their calendar. So if the teacher suggests additional reading, or the student needs to remind themselves to complete
research or something.
definitely they can add that in there as well, and assign it to a course and give it a due date, so we're managing when our tasks are due.
So it's kind of the new way of writing a post-it.
Yeah, definitely. So a common question we get from our students is, how do I reach out to my teacher if I have a question? Now Canvas has a help function, so the student can reach out from anywhere within Canvas directly to their teacher. But on the course homepage, so any of our Santa Sophia courses list all of the email addresses for specific teachers of that course. So you can see here on our English course, we've got the names of all 4 teachers across that subject. So the student can reach out to any one of those teachers via their email address, or they can use the help function. So this is what the student sees. They click on ask your instructor a question, one click, and they can write an email or a quick message to their teacher asking them for assistance on a particular
So they
task.
don't actually even have to go to their email at all. It's directly
Directly
Canvas.
through there, and the teacher gets notified and they can respond, and the student will get notified when there's a reply.
Great. Okay, so one of the things that I was going to suggest as a strategy to try to manage your time is to use a planner to schedule activities. So it's really important when we're doing this that students are also able to plan for family activities, work events, sporting, downtime, all of that all needs to be included in that. So as parents, if you could communicate to your child what might be on for the family, so they can work around those time constraints. Trying to make sure that sleep is really prioritized as well.
Wind down time.
Yeah, and we try to, good sleep hygiene, which is what it's called, is really essential to well-being. And if you can try and keep those sleep times as consistent as possible. Sometimes kids try to burn through, the night through the weeknights and then try to catch up on the weekend, but that actually doesn't have a great long-term effect on well-being. So if you can, more or less, obviously everyone enjoys a bit of a sleep in on the weekend, but if you're doing it till midday, it's probably a sign you need to change things. Try to break down tasks to manageable chunks, so that instead of just going, I've got to do the English essay that's due in 2 weeks, actually saying, I need to do an intro paragraph by this date, and breaking it down. Using your timer, a countdown timer on your laptop can be really useful. For example, you were talking about pre-work taking about 15 minutes.
Yep.
Having a 15-minute digital timer on your laptop, counting down, helps kids to stay focused and knowing how much time is left.
And also flagging if they're taking longer than the 15 to 20 minute window for each stage is really important. So a couple of ways that students can let teachers know is through the student diary, just making a quick note that maybe the task has taken longer than expected, and that allows the teacher to suggest some strategies or provide further support where it's needed for those students.
And parents, can write in the diary,
Absolutely, yeah.
and just, say, yes, my child definitely did do that work, but it took longer than expected. But getting more practice at working to time pressures is really important, and that's why that countdown feature can be so important. So this is just a sample of a weekly planner. There's plenty, you can draw up yourself or you can just get it off the internet. But this one, Monday to Friday, you can see starts at about 3 o'clock when this person gets home. And you can see this is probably a bit of a late night, but this is actually a Year 12 student from another school that I worked with. And on the weekend, you've got the whole day there to be able to plan. But you can see that work is in there, dancing is in there. You've got homework initially, but then you've got assessment tasks and things after dinner that are. And you can see there's, particular chunks like research the ancient history assessment, or, research around
Or study for
technology.
maths test, yeah.
So all of that helps a student feel a little bit more in control of what's actually going on.
So is stress a bad thing?
Stress, actually, as much as it gets a lot of bad press, stress can actually be a good thing, and stress can actually optimize performance up to a certain point. Once it gets beyond a certain point, it starts actually detracting from your performance. So what we want to do is have just enough that it doesn't overwhelm students. But if we didn't have stress at all, it would actually be really hard to stay focused and motivated, because stress basically means you care about the outcome. So that helps you get that optimal performance. So we definitely want some stress, but not so overwhelmed by it that it goes beyond that point. But it does bring up into consideration how important our thought process is around that. And I suppose that's the psychological component of time management and stress management, is that the way we actually think does influence our feelings as well as our behaviours. So we can have, in this, we've got the exact same situation. The teacher has announced there's going to be a surprise quiz the next day. Nice one, teachers. So we've got two different thought processes that happen in two different students here. One student's thinking, this is going to be really hard, I don't know anything. They're going to feel, as a result, very stressed, worried, overwhelmed, helpless. And as a response, in terms of behaviour, they might procrastinate, feel sick, just can't focus, and probably not really do things that are conducive to getting a good result there. On the other hand, a different student who might have a more helpful thought process, for example, well, the whole class is in this same situation, or I kind of know this topic. That student might feel a bit more calm, confident, but hopeful about the results. And that leads to different sorts of behaviours. So, for example, they're more likely to spend time strategizing and thinking, what am I going to do? What do I need to prioritize? How do I review my notes? What can I do to make this quiz better the next day? So you can see, same situation, two different thoughts resulting completely different feelings and behaviors. So trying to actually be aware of that thought process is really important. And another key thing I think that a lot of people identify with in terms of a block to effective time management is procrastination. It's one of the problem child of stress. So procrastination can be due to a perfectionistic trait in the young person. So wanting everything to be perfect and just thinking, no, I don't have enough time to do it right now, so I'm going to have to wait till I have this massive block of time to do it, and not wanting to make mistakes at all. But also there are some students who underestimate how long they actually need to complete the task, and they go, oh no, I'll just smash it out on Sunday night, it's fine. And then there are other students who kind of think, no, I've just got to be in the right mood, I need to be in the right zone, but that's actually problematic in itself, because who's rarely ever in the mood to actually just get stuck into an essay. And there are some people that also feel that they just work better under pressure, so I'm just going to be more effective if I'm doing it at the last minute, but actually that does really detract from the quality of the the actual assessment. So we've got some tips to avoid procrastination and perfectionism, and try, that thought process I was talking about, that can be really helpful in, what am I actually thinking here, what's stopping me from doing this, because we just need some behaviors to work towards that action of completing a task. So sometimes, having, we talk about eating or grazing with our eating, but study grazing can help to start just getting you in that mode of studying. So
you could use your planner for that?
Yeah, absolutely. Use the planner, do some short multiple stints, change it over with a few breaks. Some people actually study really well with a peer because it keeps them on track. But you have to know yourself well, because some people really get distracted by that. Writing a draft can help with, that idea that it doesn't have to be perfect first time round, and
it's a good way to get started.
Absolutely. Trying to have realistic timeframes and sticking to those using the timer is a really helpful process as well. Making lists, Christina and I both love lists. We even write things after we've done them just to tick it off. So that can be really helpful.
Now you can also use the Google Keep function as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I use Google Keep, folks, because of all the jobs that I have to do, I need to have a list as well. And Google Keep for me is a good thing to use.
To use, yeah, absolutely. So lots of different technology that's available with that. The Google To Do, the calendar that Christina was showing in Canvas.
Yeah.
Trying to have little mini rewards, switching to a different task if you're feeling like I'm just losing focus on this one. But try to stick to that schedule that you kind of planned as much as possible. And I think we are pretty much on our 20-minute time limit. So we were going to look at some questions.
So parents, now's your opportunity to ask as many questions as you so desire. We've got a couple of questions there to start off with. So Victoria has a student starting with us next year, and she wants to know, is there a demo site, so that parents can get familiar with the Canvas model?
So at the moment, we're working towards opening up parent access for our students, but we're really trying to empower the students to take advantage of all the tools that are accessible to them. And then we encourage parents to look on with their child and encourage that dialogue where the student's able to explain what they're learning and then communicate to their parent if they have any needs for support, and then also utilising the diary as a strategy to then communicate with their teachers.
Okay. And also, just in addition to that, any new student to our school goes through an onboarding process where they actually get training on how to use, they go through some modules around Canvas, around digital portfolios, learning, all the different aspects of our schools. So there's definitely lots of support around that as well.
Well, you've just preempted Victoria had another question about are there workshops for time management, and I think you've answered that effectively. Now Sapna has a question here. Does Canvas have a feature where parents will get notifications when students have allocated or submitted work?
Definitely. So when we open that up, the parent will be matched directly with their child, and then whatever the students see, the parents can see, and then subscribe to those notifications accordingly. So things like when feedback is given on a task, when due dates are assigned, when upcoming events are happening, that's all communicated through our learning management system, and our teachers work hard to make sure that those due dates are accurate and that feedback is given within a reasonable time frame.
And for the moment, we also have a system, we have another data system called Compass, and if students haven't submitted a task that was due, it's part of, it's recorded as an academic sort of incident, and so that actually generates an automatic email to parents around a particular subject that didn't have the work completed on time. So if you get an email like that, that's your cue to just have a chat to your child and just work out what went wrong there. Let's have a look at your calendar, see what was due, and it's a way to start a conversation around that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and so we've got some more these are not questions as such, they're more comments. So David agrees that good sleep hygiene is essential. So that resonated with David. And Monica Fitzallen, thank you for your feedback.
Hi,
Monica's a fellow principal of mine, a fellow principal colleague. So and her daughter Georgia teaches in the kindergarten. So thank you, Monica. Parents, more questions, please. In the interim, I was going to ask a question myself, but I've forgotten what it was.
You should have used your to-do list.
I should have used my Google Keep. So let's see if there's any more. Okay. So again, Pratika has thanked the team for tonight's information session. So thank you, Pratika. Let me see if there's anyone else. And Pauline has asked, is there a link or information on how we can get access to what? Pauline, I'm assuming that you're talking about
The
presentation.
Yeah.
Yep. So Jelena, behind the camera, folks. Jelena will put out a school bag notice tomorrow, Jelena, with the link on it for tonight's presentation. Okay, we've got 5 minutes left, folks, so ask as many questions as you can. Keep them coming. What else can we talk about, ladies?
Well, actually, I did cut down because I thought we had too much, so I cut down a couple of slides. One of the slides that we were talking about was around problem solving, so we can unhide them for when you get the link, I suppose. But basically, when your child has a problem, it's really useful to try and help them generate all the possible solutions to that problem, and then try and work out what would happen if I took this step, or what would happen if I took this step, and then rank them. What's the most likely to produce the outcome I want, and then do that step to solve the problem, and then reflect back and, okay, did that work? Did I email the teacher? Did I get the response that I needed? Do I get the clarification? If that's the end of it, then great. If not, then I might look at the next step, which might be to talk to the teacher in class the next day. And I got your email response, but I didn't quite understand. Yeah. So it's about looking at what is actually what are all the possible solutions to a problem, and how can I effectively do things. Because sometimes what happens when people get stressed is that they kind of freeze and they can't think of what to do to deal with that situation. And so if you kind of can break it down to working out, well, what could I do? And as a parent, you don't want to solve the problem for your child, because you want them to learn that sense of independence and have that confidence to know that they can handle problems, but actually trying to facilitate it, I guess, rather than you say do this or do that, because that will be your best option. So you're trying to say, okay, how did it go when you did that? So have you done that before?
Reflecting.
What are the tools that you've got through Canvas that you can address that problem? Might be something like, I feel like my group, there's a member of my group that's not actually doing enough work, and how am I going to handle that? I don't want my marks to suffer.
Yeah.
You can talk to that group member. That might be one.
Or the teacher.
You can talk to the teacher as another solution. You might start with talking to the group member, and if that didn't really work and they haven't changed, then you might talk to the teacher. And so it's kind of just knowing that there are always steps you can do.
And looking at all the options available.
Looking at all the options and then evaluating, did my problem get solved?
Yeah.
If not, I'll go back to the drawing board. What's another option that I can do?
So we have a lot of parents who are thankful for what we're doing tonight. So Madeline says thank you, and so does Danielle. But we've got a question from Rebecca here, and she says she's discussed this with you before, Anushka. If your child is sick for any length of time, what work is expected of them?
Yeah, so that's when it is, it's a really good question, and it does affect other people as well, Rebecca, so thanks for reminding us about that. When a child is just sick for a day, that's obviously going to be easier to catch up on. But when there's an extended period of time due to sickness, it's really important that a child doesn't end up spending, hours and hours trying to catch up on everything. That's where actually emailing through or communicating through Canvas to your each of your teachers, and just saying, Sir or Miss, I was away for 6 days. Could you let me know which tasks I really need to catch up on? Because the teacher can actually say, look, don't worry about this and this, but I want you to do this because that's towards a benchmark, or that's the learning that's going to affect the next class. And the teacher might actually work with that student if need be, or we have a wonderful diversity team that do additional supports for students who might have had an issue like that, where they can just sit down with them and go through some of what they've missed and help them prioritize, because there's no way you can catch up on 6 days worth of work. That's 6 hours or 5 hours of school a day times 6, so that's 30 hours of work. It's not doable, and it's of course going to result in a lot of stress. So we want teachers to be able to help to let that child know how to prioritize.
Okay, just 2 more comments. Thank you, Cheryl, for the affirmation, and a question from Rita. Now, if a parent has tried all these strategies that we've discussed tonight and they're still not working, who does the child go to at school? The year coordinator or the teacher?
Well, really, you can start with either, whichever one they feel more comfortable with. If it's more than one subject, it probably helps to go to the stage coordinator or myself as wellbeing, or the diversity, Melody Coleman or Sharon Grimer, or they're part of the diversity team, Wilma in primary, or Steph in primary. We can start that process. So if there's obviously that's going to be particular issues. Sometimes it's because of other things going on in the home. Other times it might be because of a disability. There might be particular circumstances for each situation, and we just help you evaluate what's the best course and what's the best way forward to manage that. But a good starting point would be a stage coordinator for wellbeing.
Again, thank you, Robert, for your kind comments, and George, thank you for your thanking us. And then we'll finish with the last question from who was it from? Thank you, Sapna, for thanking us as well. Pauline wants to know, how do parents get access to Canvas?
So we're working on that. It's coming soon. I would say stay tuned for that one, but
at the moment, I think you can ask your child to log into Canvas and just show you their calendar and have a look through there. As we said, you will get notifications if they're not completing work, but otherwise you can just ask them, can I just have a look at your calendar? I just want to get a bit of an idea of it. But we'll certainly inform you as soon as the school is ready to roll out the parent portal.
Okay, some more affirmations from Rita and Nicola. And I'll make this the final question, folks. It's a question from Paula. When my son submits his work, it states on Canvas that his work was either late or missing, even if it has been submitted. Is this a system glitch, or what can you do in that situation?
So your first point of call there is probably the subject teacher. So if a task is appearing as late or missing, there's probably misalignment between when that task was completed and when it was submitted. So the teacher can easily fix that to overcome the late errors or the missing errors that are showing on that child's portal.
Excellent. Okay, well, that's all we have for tonight, folks. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for giving up half an hour of your Wednesday night to be with us. And can I thank my teachers, I've got the best teachers in the world. We all know that. They've given up their Wednesday night. I'm not paying you the overtime. But, so thanks and happy Easter, everybody.
Happy Easter.